Hello, my name is Nicholas Leifker, and welcome to Management 409, Operations Management. I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about the course, talk about the structure of the course, talk about what's expected with regard to the pace of the course and timing of various events. And essentially wanted to dispel some questions that I'm guessing you probably have with regard to the course. The first thing is, this is an online course, and because this is an online course, some things are a little different. First of all, just because a course is online does not mean it's self-paced. In fact, in many ways, the pace is much faster than you would get with your typical 14-week course. Again, the course is only 7 weeks, and as a result, what we normally would fit into a 14-week course, we now have to fit into a 7-week course. Also, as mentioned, it is not self-paced in that because of that compressed time frame, you have to keep up. It is very easy, disturbingly easy, if you're not careful, to lose track, to fall behind, to fall by the wayside. It's not unusual for students to quote-unquote disappear in an online course. After all, it's very easy. If there's no classroom to meet at, it's very easy for a student to just walk away. That said, that doesn't help their grade any. So you have a course that is online, but it is not self-paced. There is still deliverables each week. There are still things that need to be done, and I'll talk about those in just a second. You see, there's a process, and you will hear those words many times over the next 2 months. But there is a process by which this course operates. The way the structure of the course works, in the beginning of the week, generally a week goes from Sunday to Sunday, one week to the next. In the beginning of the week, you start looking over the material. You start reading the book, you start watching the videos, and you start studying the material for that week. And while you're doing this, while you're studying the material, it's expected that you, of course, take notes as you normally would with your standard class. However, what I ask you to do is I ask you to fill out a study reflection. This study reflection consists of several things that you've learned over your studies, a couple of questions that you may have, and also something that you might wish to have addressed in the Collaborate session that I have on Thursday evenings. So I ask you to fill that out, and I ask you to post it to a bulletin board on Blackboard. There's a bulletin board for each week, for each week and its material. So what's expected of you in terms of class participation at the very least is that you fill out this study reflection each week and then post it to this form, to the bulletin board, and also respond to the study reflections of others that are on the bulletin board. The reason for this, well, there's several reasons. First of all, you start by learning on your own, by starting to absorb the material on your own. You watch the videos, you read the book, and then you start to collaborate. You start to get together with colleagues, you start to get together with friends. And there's a very good reason why we do this in any class, especially in an online class. And that is that, well, I have a certain way of looking at the material. I think it's a good way. However, it is not necessarily the best way to look at the material. It is possible that one of your colleagues may have a better way of looking at this. And the idea of getting feedback with regard to your study reflections and giving feedback to others with regard to their study reflections is that by doing this, the group, the whole, the class, is able to learn a lot more than each person would individually. So, fill out the study reflection. Make sure to turn it in by noon on Wednesday. So turn in the study reflection on Wednesday, and be sure with the study reflection that the responses to other study reflections is that the responses be substantive. In other words, make sure that there's substance to them. Just saying, I agree, that's not substance. Just saying, for instance, well, that's nice, that's not substance. In other words, try to answer other people's questions. Try to expand on their body of knowledge. So what'll happen is I will look at those study reflections. And what I generally do is I take these study reflections, and on Thursday I essentially design a class based on these study reflections. What I do is I look at the study reflections, look at the questions that are there. I won't address every question. It's rather difficult with the size of this class, but I do address several questions. And from those study reflections, I set up a Blackboard Collaborate session, and I have that on Thursday evenings from 7 o'clock to 8. And so I will be in the Blackboard Collaborate room. If you have any questions, please come into the Blackboard Collaborate room. That's what it's for. So we hopefully have a discussion there. And the idea is that I have an online class session. Now, it's not absolutely required that you go to the Blackboard Collaborate session. It is, however, required in terms of class participation that you fill out the study reflection, that you respond to others' study reflections, that you contribute to their body of knowledge, and also that you work in your groups with regard to the group problems. And that is the next step. Each week there will be a set of problems for you to work on. Now, hopefully you've started looking at these problems early in the week. But this set of problems that I want you to work on in your groups and turn in your groups, that'll be due Saturday at 11:59 p.m. Now the idea is, again, you work in groups so that you're able to exchange knowledge, exchange ways of solving these problems that you normally wouldn't have individually. Well, once you have this body of knowledge, once you've worked with others in your group, once you've worked with others in the class, well, it's time to go back and work on your own, to work on the homework problems, because there are individual homework problems, and work on those as well. So besides that week, and the homework, by the way, is due the following Wednesday, so there's additional time to work on that, the individual homework, that is. Now, besides that, there are a couple of major deliverables over the course of the term. For instance, there are 2 exams, and the exams, you'll have, the first exam will be during week 4, and it will cover the material from the first 3 weeks. And the second exam will be in week 7, and it will cover the remainder of the material. The exam in week 7 will be essentially a final. And also, there's going to be an Excel project. Now, the idea of an Excel project is based on what I have experienced out in the real world. Excel is a beautiful tool. Excel is an incredible tool. That said, you need experience with it. You need practice with it. You need practice in solving problems with it. Now, like I said, Excel is an extremely useful tool, extremely versatile tool. So what I am going to ask you to do is I am going to ask you to write on your own, to write Excel spreadsheets that can solve certain problems that we will encounter in regards to operations management. So that is the structure. Every week you'll have some material, you'll have, oh, and one other thing, there will be a quiz over the video and reading material just to make sure that you have read the material and watched the videos. That is one other thing. That said, you'll have access to that particular quiz from the beginning of the week, so you know what's being asked. So some things to look for over the course of the week. So you have the structure. You have the structure of a week, if you will. Again, you start by reading the material, by watching the videos, by seeing what areas you by learning and seeing what areas you have questions on. Then we all come together as a group. We start exchanging knowledge, exchanging wisdom, and hopefully from that learning further. And then we go back to the individual, seeing that we make sure that we are able to work on these problems, that we are able to get these problems done. So over the course of the week, there will be, over the course of the course, I guess, there will be 7 weeks. The first week will be an introduction to the course, and also there will be a module on forecasting. Second week, we will talk about process management. How do we make sure that what we get done is done properly? How do you measure a process? How do you see how much a process can get done? And how can you improve a process? Week 3 will be project management. The idea here is that we have large, difficult tasks to perform, maybe once. That's what a project is. It's basically a large process that's done once. And so how do you manage that? How do you see how long it takes to get a process done, to complete a process, or complete a project, to get a project done? And also, things like, how do you hurry up a project? How do you crash a project? Week 4, we start to take a step back, if you will. During the first half of the course, we see how to get stuff done. And then with week 4, we start looking at inventory management. Inventory is a lot like fat. You see, inventory is the energy by which businesses run. Without inventory, your business starves. It shuts down. In the same way as if your body has no body fat, it has no energy. It shuts down. However, if it has too much, in the same way that if your body has too much fat, if your business has too much inventory, then it can be weighed down by that inventory. It can make your business more sluggish, and in extreme cases, it could shut the business down. After all, what you're doing with inventory is you're taking money and you're converting it to stuff. That's fairly easy. That said, converting stuff back into money, that's a little harder. So that's week 4. Week 5, we start looking at quality. How do we make sure that what we do is done well? So how do we measure quality? How do we improve quality in our business? And ultimately, how do we make sure that a certain standard of quality is maintained? Now, week 6 I call the grab bag. Week 6 is several topics that I think are good to know. Each of these topics could be covered over several weeks on their own, but I just want to touch on them fairly quickly. Those topics include things like lean production, things like MRP and ERP systems, things like risk pooling. And then in week 7, the last week, we bring it all back. We start looking at the supply chain. Now, supply chains are a good way of thinking about a supply chain is it's a really big process. And again, we're going to learn about processes earlier in the course. A really big process that involves several different companies. Because with a supply chain, you're basically taking dirt, raw materials, and converting it to finished goods, and then selling those finished goods. And all of the steps, all of the companies involved in that transition, from dirt to some refined raw material, to maybe some part, to assembling that part into a finished product, to sending that product to a retailer, to a customer buying that part, all of those steps are part of a supply chain. And like I said, a supply chain is just a really big process, so a lot of the same rules apply. However, there are some unique issues to supply chains that we normally don't see with regard to your standard process, and we're going to go over some of those. So that is the basic structure of the course. Again, you have some work ahead of you. That said, it's good work. We can get this done. So be well, take care, and hopefully we'll have a good 7 weeks.